Peter Thiel, the billionaire venture capitalist who wrote the first check to Facebook, who co-founded Palantir, and who literally wrote the book on building monopolies 0 to 1, begins his pitch to founders with a single, foundational question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? He isn't looking for a clever answer. He's testing for courage. He's betting on the few who see the world not as it is, but as it will be. This isn't a documentary. This is an intelligence briefing, and it is the answer to that question. Right now, the consensus view, the comfortable, lazy, groupthink position, is that Google will be just fine. That the titan of search will simply absorb this new AI technology, bolt it onto its empire, and continue its reign. That is the view of the many. This briefing is for the few. For the last decade, Wall Street has been a golden age. The market has been powered by a handful of tech darlings: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, Tesla, and of course, Alphabet. The Magnificent Seven. It has been by any measure 7 years of unprecedented plenty. But history has a brutal sense of humor. In the biblical narrative, the Pharaoh of Egypt has a dream. He sees 7 fat, healthy cows emerge from the Nile, followed by 7 gaunt, skeletal cows that devour the healthy ones. His court magicians, the established experts of their day, are mystified. It takes an outsider, a prisoner named Joseph, to interpret the dream for what it is. Not a mystery, but a forecast. 7 years of abundance to be followed by 7 years of catastrophic famine. For the last 2 decades, Google has been the fattest cow, but a new dream is playing out in the server farms of Silicon Valley. And this briefing is your Joseph. It is your forecast. The prevailing blue pill narrative, sung by the court magicians of Wall Street, is that these years of plenty will last forever. They see Sundar Pichai on stage, and they are soothed by a symphony of cleverly named projects: Gemini, VEO, Duet AI, Lambda, Palm, Vertex AI, Flow, Jules, Whisk, Gemma, an entire fantasy land of AI products. They see this frantic activity and mistake it for progress. They see a tech titan doing AI. What they don't see is a king frantically polishing the brass on the Titanic. So here is your choice. You can take the blue pill. Stop this briefing now, wake up in your office tomorrow, and believe whatever you want to believe about your portfolio. Or you can take the red pill. You can stay in this wonderland, and I will show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. For those of you still here, congratulations, you've chosen to see the truth. This briefing is inspired by a 75,000-word institutional report titled, "Google, We Have a Problem." The title itself is a warning, a deliberate echo of the famous distress call from the Apollo 13 mission. Houston, we have a problem. Google has a problem, and it's bigger than anyone is willing to admit. The story of this paradigm shift begins, as they all do, with a single deafening event. November 30th, 2022. A small San Francisco lab called OpenAI releases what it calls a research preview. No marketing budget, no epic launch, no influencers, just a link. 5 days later, 1 million users. 2 months later, 100 million monthly active users, the fastest growing application in human history. To put that in perspective, it took Instagram 2.5 years to reach that milestone. It took WhatsApp over 3 years. This wasn't a product launch, it was a planetary psychological event. Inside the Googleplex, the reaction was not quiet. It was a full-blown, panic-induced code red. The founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, were summoned from their billionaire islands for the first time in years. The company scrambled a clumsy counterattack, a chatbot named Bard. In its very first public demo, Bard was asked a question about the James Webb Space Telescope. It answered with a confident, plausible, and verifiably false statement. The market reacted instantly, vaporizing $100 billion from Alphabet's value in a single day. A few tech journalists chuckled. Some investors lost a few million. But what almost everyone missed was the real signal. This wasn't just a bug. It was a public confession of just how far behind Google truly was. All the frantic catching up they're doing now isn't innovation. It's a performance for Wall Street. And this is where the fatal misreading of the battlefield occurred. The panic subsided. Google launched its symphony of AI products, and the market, addicted to the old music, was soothed. But this was the siege of Jerusalem, 70 CE. The Roman general Titus made an initial clumsy assault and was repelled. The defenders celebrated. But Titus didn't go home. He regrouped. He learned the terrain, and when he returned, he didn't just sack the city, he leveled it. ChatGPT's launch was the first assault. The monetization model is the return of Titus. To understand why, you need to understand the framework laid out in the report by its author, Simba. He calls it thesis theory. He argues that to become a generational monopoly, a tech company must master 4 distinct stages. 1. The problem. Identify a massive unsolved problem. 2. The product. Create a novel product, a thesis to solve it. 3. Product market fit. Achieve exponential rapid adoption. And the 4th, most critical and most often failed step. 4. The monetization model. Find a scalable way to make money from that fit. For decades, startups worshipped at the altar of build it and they will come. Then Mark Andreessen declared that product market fit is the only thing that matters. But they were both wrong. Most startups don't fail because their product was bad or because people didn't want it. They fail because they never figure out stage 4. For a long time, Mark Zuckerberg had no idea how to make money from Facebook. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple after creating the brilliant Apple Lisa because he hadn't mastered stage 4. When he returned, he didn't just build better products, he built a better business model. According to thesis theory, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, they have all achieved stage 3, product market fit. But the war is not over. The race is now to see who can master stage 4 first. Whoever figures out how to monetize the new behavior of prompting versus Googling is the one who levels the city. The famine is coming. The famine is inevitable. To understand the scale of the collapse, you have to appreciate the perfection of the machine that's about to be broken. The business theorist Peter Drucker said a company has only 2 functions, marketing and innovation. For 20 years, Google was the most perfect business ever conceived. They executed thesis theory flawlessly. The problem: the internet was a library with all the books thrown on the floor. It lacked authority. The product: their thesis was an academic paper, the anatomy of a large-scale hypertextual web search engine. The product was PageRank, a system that treated links as votes of confidence. Product market fit: it was so good its name became a verb. It crossed the chasm, as Geoffrey Moore would say, instantly. But crossing the chasm is only half the battle. You don't want to be like the German soldiers who reached Stalingrad in record time, only to freeze to death because they outran their supply lines. For a time, the Google founders were stuck. In 1999, they tried to sell their company to Excite for just $750,000. They had world-changing product market fit, but without a business model, even they didn't see the value. The monetization, and then came the genius of AdWords. It didn't just sell ads, it sold destinations. It monetized the click, the act of leaving. This created the most profitable advertising machine in history, a $238 billion a year engine, a perfect self-perpetuating system. And as Clayton Christensen warned in The Innovator's Dilemma, it is always the perfect, successful companies that are most vulnerable, because they have everything to lose. This brings us to the core of the dilemma. The report frames it with a Zimbabwean Shona proverb. Nyokahuru haizvirume. A great big snake does not bite itself. Google is the great snake. Its search advertising business is its own profitable body. Generative AI is the serpent's bite, and to fully embrace it is an act of self-cannibalization. Let's talk in terms you understand. A Google search costs almost nothing to serve. An AI-powered answer can cost 10 to 50 times more in raw computing power. Your costs explode, and your revenue, it evaporates. A page of 10 blue links is a billboard with 10 ad slots. A single synthesized answer from an AI is a closed book. There is nowhere to put an ad. It is the end of the click. This is why Google's response is the monstrous, self-defeating hybrid the report describes. Bolting AI overviews onto search is gluing a digital sensor onto a roll of film. and the data shows it's a catastrophic failure. When an AI overview is present, click-through rates for traditional website links plummet by nearly 70%. The multi-billion-dollar SEO industry? For years they've cried wolf about the death of their craft. But this time, the wolf is real. The moment we stop Googling and start prompting an AI agent to book our travel and order our food, SEO becomes a relic, a job title as obsolete as a blacksmith. Google is now forced to promote a feature that simultaneously suppresses its revenue and multiplies its costs. It is Kodak, burying its own digital camera to protect its film business all over again. An AI-native company, an OpenAI and Anthropic, they are the bird. They have no profitable body to protect. They can attack from the air. How does an eagle kill a venomous snake? It doesn't fight it on the ground. It snatches it into the sky, into a different dimension where the snake is helpless. This is the new battlefield. So, what about the moat? Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of his generation, built his empire on a single principle, investing in companies with deep, impenetrable moats. A castle with a moat, he reasoned, could fend off invaders indefinitely. For a generation, Google's data was considered the widest, most crocodile-infested moat in history. But that moat is turning into a swamp. Simba calls this Google's BlackBerry moment. But not for the reason you think. When Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone, BlackBerry's leadership scoffed. They called it a toy. They were so fixated on stage 3 of Simba's thesis theory, monetizing their product, the physical email machine with a QWERTY keyboard. They completely missed that Jobs was about to master stage 4. The App Store wasn't merely a feature for the new toy. It was a disruptive innovation that created a new, superior business model, monetizing the entire ecosystem of a life connected to the internet. Google is the new BlackBerry. It is fighting to defend its search box, its QWERTY keyboard. People who think this battle is between AI search, like what Perplexity's CEO Aravind Srinivas incorrectly thinks, and Google's search are watching the wrong fight. That's a bird fighting a snake on the ground, a battle Google can easily win, any day of the week. But as Sam Altman himself said, ChatGPT isn't a search engine. It's not even a comparison. One points you to 10 shiny blue links. The other is an intelligent answering machine. The real war isn't on the ground, it's in the sky. The new starting point is the AI prompt, and this rewires everything. It renders Google's data moat a wasting asset. Simba frames this perfectly. Google is the master of Latin in the age of English. It has 2 decades of perfect data on an arcane language, Googling, but the world is rapidly adopting the natural conversational language of prompting. Worse, the new data being generated is qualitatively superior. Google's model was the security camera. It passively observed our public behavioral exhaust. An AI chatbot is the confessional booth. To understand the terrifying power of this distinction, let me tell you a story. A man named Brian Switchko pulled an elaborate prank on his new roommate. The retaliation was to be just as calculated as the original offense. Brian's weapon of choice: Facebook ads. To be more precise, Facebook's custom audience tool. His ammunition: context. He created a custom ad audience of just one person, his roommate. You see, his roommate was a professional sword swallower, but Brian knew a secret, an irony only a close friend would know. This man who could down a 26-inch sword, but gagged every time he tried to swallow a pill. So Brian created the first ad, a fake product speaking only to sword swallowers about how to take pills without gagging. 2 days later, a message comes in. It's his roommate. "Dude, I'm getting some really weirdly specific ads on Facebook. I'm kind of freaking out." Brian then escalated. He began running a series of progressively more accurate and disturbing ads, referencing things about his roommate's personal life that weren't anywhere online, that Facebook could not possibly know. The goal: to make him unbelievably paranoid. And a blissfully happy coincidence amplified the effect. The Edward Snowden controversy was breaking news. Paranoia was in the air. Soon the roommate was so spooked he refused to talk on the phone, saying, "Let's talk when I get home." The prank went on for 3 weeks, until Brian revealed himself with a final ad, using his roommate's own profile picture, asking a provocative question. The next morning, a note on the whiteboard: Very, very, very well played. The total cost of this 3-week psychological warfare campaign? $1.70. That is the power of context over data. Google, with its security cameras, has spent 2 decades and hundreds of billions of dollars to build a blurry mosaic of your online behavior. Their YouTube ads are still annoying because they lack true context. But Brian, with just a few scraps of information from the confessional booth, achieved a level of personalization so perfect it was indistinguishable from magic or madness. The entire foundation of Google's ad empire has just been turned upside down. Bill Gates famously said, "Content is king. In the new AI world order, context is God." Let me ask you a very deep personal question. You've been Googling for 20 years or so. But if you've been using ChatGPT for the last 2 years, who do you think knows more about you? Not your habits, but you. This is merely the tip of the iceberg. The report by Simba goes deeper, giving you 50 reasons why this is an extinction-level event for Google's business model. This brings us to the inevitable checkmate. It's not a better search engine. It is a superior business model. The true Google killer will be an AI-first advertising network built on the vibe of the user, not their keywords. Imagine an advertiser approaching an AI not to bid on running shoes, but to say, "Find me a 35-year-old woman training for her first marathon who is feeling optimistic." The AI, armed with the context from the confessional booth, can weave a recommendation into a conversation so perfectly, it feels like a psychic suggestion from a trusted friend. That model doesn't just compete with Google Ads, it makes it look like the yellow pages. You have had your 7 years of plenty. The lean years are at the door. The choice you face is between the blue pill, the comforting narrative from Wall Street that risks a catastrophic capital loss, and the red pill this report offers, the uncomfortable truth that allows for a measured, strategic response. This briefing has been an overview. The full 75,000-word report contains the 50 points of evidence, the data, the unsparing analysis that underpins this thesis. It is the math on the back of the napkin that proves the music is slowing, but soon will inevitably stop. The prompt is on the wall. The question is, can you read it?